What's up, guys, and welcome to Gamescript. Tonight's show, we're going to be looking at the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Atlanta Falcons. This is going to be Monday Night Football, and it's a situation where A.J. Brown has been ruled out for the game, and a lot of captain ownership seems to be shifting to Devonta Smith. Is that the right move? Let's dig in after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. Tonight, we got the Atlanta Falcons versus the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a 45.5-point total with Philadelphia as 5.5-point favorites. It's going to be an interesting game. We got some injury news to deal with. A.J. Brown is out for tonight. He has a hamstring injury, but they are also playing against an Atlanta team that looked terrible last week. It was Kirk Cousins' first game with the team, and he's coming off an Achilles injury, and he looked a lot different. Like the style of offense that he was running last week is not one that he's used to, and there looked like there was a lot of things that could impact his performance for the season, and we'll dig into that in a minute. Make sure to hit the like button. Looking for 30 likes to trigger a shorter video later on. You're going to want to get that because I'm going to be doing a little bit more research throughout the day, and I'll have my finalized favorite picks later on with a short video, probably a couple hours before lock. But you're going to want to hit the like button because 30 likes will trigger that video, and hit subscribe because you're going to want to be subscribed to the channel in order to get the alert when that video comes out. You're going to want to sign up for alerts. Click the little bell button after you subscribe to the channel. I'm looking for 1,000 subscribers. I'm about 830 right now, so I'm about 170 away. So help me out there, and let's dig into this game. So we're looking at a DraftKings Showdown slate. I always build DraftKings Showdown lineups on this show. This is my favorite game to play and the one that I've had the most success with. If you watched all throughout last week, we had hits on every single slate so far. The only slate that was a dud was Sunday night slate, but we'll pick up and move on with this. The Eagles are one of the teams that I like the most, so it's I feel pretty confident about this slate and about getting back on track with this slate. So let's dig in here. Saquon Barkley had a monster week last week. Debut with the Eagles. He finally gets to play on a decent offense, and he showed up with 109 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns total, and he added another 23 yards in the air. So big game by Saquon Barkley. If you watched the show with me and Spread last week, Spread projected that the Eagles and the Packers would be running throughout that game, and Saquon Barkley delivered on that projection. So Saquon Barkley in another good spot tonight against Atlanta, because Jalen Hurts is going to be in a situation that he's not very good against. So let's go into Bijan Robinson. Robinson is in a situation against the Philadelphia Eagles where they have given up, at least last season, they gave up 19.7 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. That's a middling stat, but when you got a guy like Bijan Robinson, like he can do a lot with something like that. And Bijan Robinson, I think, is going to get a lot of work tonight just because of the limitations that Kirk Cousins is going to have this week against this Eagles defense. His history of playing in primetime games. I'm not putting a whole lot of weight in that, but it's been pretty consistent with Kirk Cousins' performances in these primetime games, especially on Monday night. He's got a losing record, and he has not done well in these situations. And on top of that, with the injury that he's dealing with and how he looked last week in last week's game, there's just a lot going against Kirk Cousins, and it puts me more towards Bijan Robinson as being the focal point of this offense tonight. A.J. Brown is out, as I mentioned. We go to Jalen Hurts next. Jalen Hurts, he's pretty far down on this list of highest priced weapons in this game, and he's usually probably like the most expensive guy on a given slate, but on this one he's the third or fourth most. So very interesting there. Last week, Jalen Hurts put up 19 DraftKings points. They don't have the Jason Kelce in the center anymore. Saquon Barkley is on the team now, so that's going to take a little bit more of those, like those easy touchdowns away from Hurts. And I think kind of a combination of those things hurts, no pun intended. But I think there's another thing that's going to hurt him tonight, and that's that he does not perform well versus zone coverage. And Atlanta ran zone coverage 100% of the time last week, and that's going to put Jalen Hurts in a situation where he might not perform like we normally see him, and that might keep this game closer than it should be. And it's going to probably push this game more towards the running backs, and that's where I think I have a lot of interest tonight. And the passing game, on top of it, he's missing A.J. Brown. So there's a lot of things working against Jalen Hurts in tonight's game. They are playing in Philadelphia. That's advantageous for Hurts. And it's Nick Foles night in the stadium. So the crowd is going to be hyped. Philadelphia loves Nick Foles, and they're going to be inducting him into the Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Fame tonight. So that's a big aspect of Monday Night Football, for Eagles fans tonight. So moving on from Hurts, we got Cousins, who is surprisingly at $9K for his DraftKings salary. Cousins did not do well last week. He had 155 passing yards, only threw one touchdown. He had 8.2 DraftKings points, but he played in a situation that he's not really comfortable in. He was throwing out of the pistol formation a lot, and he's not used to that, and he has not had a majority of his success throughout his career in that formation. So Kirk Cousins has a lot working against him tonight, especially his performance in primetime games. But if we were looking to fade that narrative, I wouldn't mind fading that narrative if he was healthy, but he is still recovering from that injury, and he's coming off of just a poor week one performance. He's on a new team in a new environment, dealing with new weapons, developing new chemistry. They played very little in the preseason, so there's a lot working against Kirk Cousins tonight. Moving on to Devonta Smith. He's in a great situation. He is the primary slot receiver on the team now. With Kellen Moore running that offense, he's moved Devonta Smith in as the slot receiver. Last week, just to give you an illustration there, he ran 72% of his routes from the slot. He only ran 23 from the left side of the field and 5 from the right side of the field, but that 72% from the slot is what we're interested in. Not only because he's the primary target for Jalen Hurts in zone coverage, but also because the top corner, AJ Terrell of the Falcons, is primarily a perimeter corner. So I don't know, with AJ Brown being out, if he's going to move into the slot and do a lot more coverage on Devonta Smith. But if he's not getting shadowed tonight, that's going to make Devonta excellent play tonight, and justify his 17% captain ownership or wherever he's at. So there's very interesting there for Devonta Smith. He's a great play tonight, and he's in a great situation. With Drake London, he did not do very well last week. He didn't get many targets. He only got 3 targets, but part of that comes with Kirk Cousins' struggles last week. On top of that, Drake London, he's in a better matchup this week, but it's going to kind of depend on what Kirk Cousins' situation is. The Eagles allowed, I believe, the most DraftKings points to wideouts last week. If you watched our show last week with me and Spread, where we broke down the Green Bay Eagles game on Friday in Brazil, one of the things that I pointed out is that the Eagles are most vulnerable to the slot receivers. Drake London did not run a lot of his routes in the slot, though. And that is one thing that I think we can get a little bit different if people are going to, focus primarily on Drake London as the weapon to target in Atlanta's offense this week, given the projected game script of this game, where people think I think people are projecting Philadelphia maybe to run away with this game, but I think with the type of defense that Atlanta runs and Jalen Hurts struggles against zone defense, I think that it's going to be a closer game than people are anticipating. But I do think that the Eagles have a ton of potential to run away with this one because of the limitations of Kirk Cousins and this offense. But Drake London, if you think that Kirk Cousins can get it together, he's got an excellent matchup because Eagles are also vulnerable outside. But I primarily target the Eagles defense when with their slot receivers that I like. So Kyle Pitts kind of fills that role. He's kind of the de facto slot receiver in this Atlanta offense. He had 3 targets last week as well. One interesting thing with Pitts last week is that he ran 100%. 100% of the time he was on the field, he was running routes. So that's interesting for a tight end. Basically, he's basically a receiver in this offense, and running 100% routes when you're on the field as a tight end, that's significant. And he's basically, I have to check and see where he ran the most of his routes, but I think in the past he's run a lot from the slot, so that makes him interesting against the Eagles. Last season, the Eagles gave up, on top of it, they gave up 12.4 DraftKings points a game to tight ends, which is also, like a middling stat. But, if he's running a majority of his routes in the slot, then that makes him very interesting tonight in this matchup against the Eagles. We can skip down to Dallas Goedert. Goedert is a guy who benefits usually when A.J. Brown is out. He didn't do much last week. He had 5 targets, 4 receptions for, looks like 31 yards. So didn't do much last week, but, not too worried about that. He's 5,800 this week. He's in a good matchup too, because last year Atlanta gave up 13.8 DraftKings points a game to tight ends, which is a top 10 number. So he is in a good situation this week, and Dallas Goedert is someone that we can have in our player pools this week, especially with A.J. Brown out, despite what he did last week. We're not worried about last week. Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is the primary slot receiver for Atlanta. He ran, he's more a slot receiver than Drake London. Let's just put it that way. He ran 39% of his routes from the slot last week. Ray McLeod was the primary slot receiver last week, running 47% of his routes from the slot. But Darnell Mooney, 39% of his routes in the slot, is very interesting to me at 5,600. That puts Darnell Mooney in the player pool this week, given Philadelphia's weakness in that area of the field. So we go to Koo. I like both kickers in this game. I think I have a preference for Jake Elliott. I have a preference for him just based on how much offense I think the Eagles are going to get in this game. Koo, I don't know how well the Falcons are going to move the ball, so I'm not really focused on him as much as I would be Jake Elliott. And it's great that Jake Elliott is $200 cheaper than him as well, so that helps us out there. So Jake Elliott and Koo are both in play, but I definitely have a leaning towards Elliott in this game. Eagles D I like tonight as well, just given the, they've historically been a explosive defense. They got Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator this year. I think he's going to be beneficial to the team. But, the analysis that we did on Vic Fangio defenses last year when we, if you watch some of the shows and we were breaking down Dolphins games, Vic Fangio is a guy that it takes a team some time to get adjusted to. But Vic Fangio also was he was a consultant for the Eagles a couple years ago when they faced against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Throughout that playoffs, Vic Fangio was a consultant to the defense. So they might have a little bit more familiarity with Vic Fangio than a team normally would, which makes the Eagles defense even more it's even more beneficial to the Eagles defense tonight. So Jahan Dotson should get a bigger role this week with A.J. Brown missing. He didn't really do too much last week, but he ran a decent amount of routes, and so he has a significant he's a significant piece in this offense, and that should benefit him tonight, getting more work, especially with the injury situation to A.J. Brown. Dotson did not run much from the slot. He was running 58% of his routes on the right side of the field. But if Terrell doesn't travel into the slot, then I would imagine that Jahan Dotson should be seeing a lot of that coverage. And I would not target Jahan Dotson if he's going up against A.J. Terrell. Going to have to monitor and see what beat reports are saying and take a look at A.J. Terrell slot coverage numbers, see how often he travels in the slot. I know last week he did not travel into the slot, but they were up against Pittsburgh, so he's primarily guarding George Pickens. And guarding George Pickens, he got burned a couple times by George Pickens, so he's not impenetrable. But Jahan Dotson, I would not take Jahan Dotson over A.J. Terrell in that matchup. Algier did not get a lot of work, which is good for us if we like Bijan Robinson. And I was very high on Bijan Robinson going into the season in best ball. And I'm glad to see that Algier did not play much of a role last week. That's not to say that he won't this week, but I don't think that they're going to be taking Bijan off the field very much tonight. Falcons D, I'm not really interested there. Although, you could take a flyer on them if you need some salary relief, just based on the struggles that Hurts has had against zone coverage. But there's just too many weapons on the Eagles, even without A.J. Brown there. And I think the Kellen Moore running the offense, I think they can figure out a way to take advantage of this defense, whether it's through the air or on the ground. And I think it's going to be primarily on the ground. So Ray McLeod, looking at him, he got the most targets on the team last week with 7. And he was the primary slot receiver. Rondale Moore, I believe they brought Rondale Moore in to be the primary slot receiver, but he's hurt. We'll have to look at his status closer to game time. But Ray McLeod did a decent performance last week. Kenny Gainwell, not really interested in the secondary running backs in this offense now that they got Barkley, Calcaterra, Shipley. If we're going down this, Rondale Moore's on the IR. So you don't have to worry about Rondale Moore taking work away from Ray McLeod, which makes Ray McLeod very interesting against Philadelphia's slot coverage. All right, so let's dig into this game here. Make sure to hit the like button. Like I said, I'm looking for 30 likes to put out a shorter video later on. Those videos have been hitting very well. I've had about a 75% hit rate on them, apart from last night where I think I had 0 hits on last night's video. So, give me a mulligan on that one. But the other videos that I've put out have been huge. Yesterday's main slate video, I nailed all 4 of my picks on that one. A lot of people messaging me about the Gesicki call, and he was 3,100, ended up scoring about 16 DraftKings points, so delivered for us with that salary relief on top of stacking that Baker Mayfield game. So a lot of good hits on yesterday's main slate. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure you're setting alerts, and let's dig into this lineup build. So I think Jalen Hurts is the primary, the highest owned captain in this one. People are, still under the impression that Hurts is one of those guys that's going to get all the touches in the red zone and stuff like that. Barkley makes a huge difference on this team, and not having A.J. Brown makes a huge difference for this team, and so does the zone coverage that he's going to be facing tonight. So Hurts might not be as attractive in the captain as people are thinking, and that's where we can take advantage of. But for the sake of a chalky lineup, let's put Hurts in the captain there. Going to put Ray McCloud in there because he's a cheap source of targets on Atlanta's side. That's what the optimal's putting out. Where's he at? All right, he's only at 3K, so he's a really good value, especially for the amount of work and the matchup he's going to have. All right, so Ray McCloud's in there. The optimal wants us to put, like several of these weapons from the Atlanta side in there. So they want us to get in Bijan, which makes sense. I like Bijan tonight. They want us to get in Drake London. Drake London, like I said, he's got the matchup, but is Kirk Cousins going to be able to deliver on it? They also have us putting in, let's see, Devonta Smith with that great matchup tonight. And they are, great workload tonight, A.J. Brown being out. And then on top of that, they got a kicker in there. So you can pick and choose your kicker or defense or whatever there. But that's basically what an optimal is looking like tonight. If you wanted to go with Devonta Smith in that captain spot, this is a type of build you can do. I know Devonta Smith is going to be highly owned, though, in the captain. I don't, if he was going to be lower owned, I'd be all about, using Devonta Smith tonight. But, since he's going to be a higher owned captain, I want to build my Gamescript around a different player that should also be, highly owned, but, lesser owned than some of these highest owned guys. So let's put Devonta Smith in there, projecting him at 17% ownership in the captain spot. If Devonta Smith's in there, likely we want to put Hurts in there as well. I want to get Bijan in there because I think he's going to get, basically all the offense in this game tonight for the Falcons side. And I think I want to put the Eagles defense in there. That's going to leave us with 6K per guy. If I'm projecting slot receivers to do better against the Eagles tonight, I'm either looking at Mooney or I'm looking at Pitts. And in this case, I'm going to try it with Pitts and see where that leaves us. So we got 2 Atlanta weapons. I probably don't want to put more than 2 Atlanta guys in a lineup, especially one where I have, Smith in the captain spot. So that's going to put us in this situation again where I got Koo and I got Elliott and Dotson and, like guys like that. If you wanted to put Dotson in there, I don't hate that. He's cheap. He's 4K. Ray McCloud, makes sense too. But like I said, I probably don't want to put more than a couple of these Falcons, and I already got Bijan and Pitts. If Ray is getting success tonight, then that's going to take away from Pitts. If we take Pitts out and we put in Mooney, leaves us with 6,600. Doesn't really help us because, look, we're in that range of backup quarterbacks, but we could get Goedert in there, and that would give us a second weapon for Hurts to throw to. We should also benefit from A.J. Brown being out. Going to leave some money on the table, too, so you get a little bit different there. But that's one way that you could go. And it also leaves you still with the same guys underneath there. Now, one thing that I'm interested in doing is Barkley in the captain. I think that Hurts is going to struggle tonight against the zone defense. That's actually pretty good. And A.J. Terrell, if he ends up guarding Devonta Smith, I think that's going to limit the upside for this offense. And they're not going to really have those secondary guys to throw to that are they have the secondary guys to throw to, but I don't think that those guys are going to make up the difference there. Saquon Barkley, I like Bijan Robinson because I think he's going to handle the offense. Devonta Smith, I think just the volume that he's going to get, puts him in play. And especially on a showdown slate, that's what we're looking for. I'm going to go down here to Darnell Mooney, who I like getting that slot work against the Eagles. So I got my 2 Falcons in there. From there, I would probably go with the Eagles defense, projecting this one to be more of a game where the Eagles D is going to be handling Kirk Cousins pretty well. And that leaves you with, like the kicker options and Dotson and the Falcons D and Ray McLeod, stuff like that. So, there's a few ways to build. This is going to be, like an interesting slate tonight. I think there's a lot of opportunity in it. And I think that given the ownership projections right now, I think, like there's all sorts of ways that you can lean if you're going, below. Let's see. Let me see what the top 3 are going to be: Hurts, Smith, and Bijan from projections. But, you could put guys like Goedert in there and play around with it a little bit. You could put Darnell Mooney or Ray McLeod in there and hope that the slot continues their dominance against Philly. Last week, if you watched the show, I put Jaden Reed in the captain against Philly because of their weakness against slot receivers, and it paid off for us. He came in under 6% owned for his ownership in the captain spot, and he ended up getting like 36 DraftKings points for us last week. So he absolutely crushed and, set the stage for week 1 for the calls in general, where just everything crushed. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm at 830 right now. So I need 170 of those. I want to get there by week 3, hopefully. But, help me out. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button. 30 likes triggers a shorter video later on. And I will see you guys a little bit later on. Good luck, guys.